Hey everyone, it's Will. This is my informative speech, and the topic of it is the smallpox vaccine. Now, before I get into this, I do want to preface that this is nothing political. I'm not trying to challenge anyone's beliefs. I'm just trying to present information on the smallpox vaccine and how important it was and continues to be. Did you know that the first ever vaccine was performed in 1796? Vaccines have developed alongside humanity for well over 200 years, and their impact affects everyone. My goal in this speech is to provide enough information on the smallpox vaccine so that everyone can reflect on the role that it played in our society and form a well-educated opinion of vaccines on their own. So in this speech, I first want to give a brief explanation on how our immune system and vaccines work, because they work together. And then I want to provide information on how the first vaccine came to be and also the effects of that vaccine and how it's played out for the rest of humanity. Now, whenever we get sick, meaning that we have a bacteria or a virus affecting our bodies, we will trigger a sort of immune response, which is basically our body trying to fight the disease. These responses are typically inflammation or a fever or coughing, stuff that usually happens when we get sick. Now, these responses are all due to something called an innate immune system. This is like our general defense against getting sick. This is what our body does to try and fight every disease that we might encounter. But we also have something called an adaptive immune system. What an adaptive immune system is, it's like our body recognizes something that made us sick in the past so that it can more effectively fight against it if we were to encounter it again. And it fights more effectively than our innate immune system would be able to. Now, this information was not very in-depth whatsoever. If you want to find out more, you can go to a National Institutes of Health article from 2006 titled, In Brief, Innate and Adaptive Immune Systems. Now, due to our adaptive immune system, vaccines are able to work. What a vaccine is, it's basically exposing us to a weakened or inactive version of a disease that we are trying to prevent. That way, our body can build up immunity against it without having to encounter the full-blown deadly disease. Now, like everything else in the world, vaccines have an origin. The first ever vaccine was in 1796, and it was used to treat a disease called smallpox. Now, smallpox was an extremely deadly disease. It was highly contagious. It left people with these rashes all over their body, and about 30% of the people that got smallpox would be killed from it. Now, the man who created the vaccine for smallpox was Dr. Edward Jenner, and he didn't actually use smallpox to treat smallpox. He used cowpox, which is a milder, less deadly version of smallpox. Sort of similar in structure to smallpox. That way, when our body learned how to fight cowpox, it built up that immunity which worked on smallpox. Now, the first ever recipient of this vaccine was an 8-year-old boy who 2 months later, by the consent of his parents, was exposed to smallpox, and he was found to be completely immune to it. And at the time, this was massive. This was a very big discovery. So big that US President Thomas Jefferson and French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte both recognized and advocated for the vaccine. Now, all of that information can be found on the World Health Organization article from 2025 titled, A Brief History of Vaccination. Now, as I'm praising this vaccine, I should tell you how effective it was. The smallpox vaccine was so effective and widely distributed that smallpox was essentially extinct because of it. The last known case for smallpox in the United States was in 1952, and it was declared globally eradicated in 1980. And it worked so well that the vaccine is actually no longer distributed. The vaccine was so successful that it completed its job and then has been retired for the past 50 years. And all of this information can be found on the History of Smallpox article by the Center for Disease Control, and that was from 2025. Now, to wrap this up, I really want to emphasize why the smallpox vaccine worked so well. It worked because it was a global effort. Everyone advocated for the smallpox vaccine. Everyone was trying to get rid of smallpox. Diseases are always going to be a continuous problem for humanity, for as long as humanity exists. So, in order to get rid of these diseases, we need to unite on the agenda of getting rid of them and trust in vaccines.